Hello, dearest friends in our wonderful community of Belmont. I hope this message finds you well, in good health, and finding strength through these difficult times. I want to share with you my thoughts for our parasha this week, our Seja of Emor, from the word Amar, taken from the very, very beginning of our parasha, as the verse opens as follows. V'yoma Hashem el Moshe. God speaks to Moshe. Emor el Kohanim, and he gives them the following instruction. Say to the priests, say to the Kohanim, B'nei Aaron, the children of Aaron, V'amarta aleihem, and say to them as follows, Lenefesh lo yitama ba'amav, do not defile yourselves, do not become impure, do not become tameh. And this concept, this idea of tumah, to become tameh, this spiritual impurity, needs a lot of explanation, but let's just simply understand it for today's purposes as follows. Do not become impure. Set yourself apart from the rest of the community in order that you can service and serve in the Bet HaMikdash, in the temple. And that's how we understand it, and this becomes the origin, or part of the origin, that a Kohen, a priest, stands separate around death, around a dead body. They don't stand in the same room or come into that person's space, into that area. There's a separate room at the prayer halls for the Kohanim, and this is where it comes from. This is how it's understood. Our sages spend much time and spill much ink trying to understand simply the redundancies in this verse. The word emor or amar comes up 3 times. V'yom Hashem Moshe, say to Moshe. Emor el Kohanim, say to the Kohanim. V'amarta aleihem, and say to them. Why the repetition? Why does it repeat the word amar, emor so many times? Comes along Rashi. And Rashi explains with the following words. He says, emor v'amarta, the idea of saying over a few times. What's the reason? Lazhir gdolim al ktanim, to warn, to convey a message from parents to teach their children. Says Rashi, the repetition of the word amar, to say, is highlighting to parents, make sure you teach this. Be careful to teach this law, these laws, you Kohanim parents, to your children. Now we understand, according to Rashi, the redundancy, just to highlight this specific mitzvah. But begs the obvious question, Mr. Rashi, what are you talking about? Lav dafka, this mitzvah, not only this mitzvah, parents have to be careful to teach their children. Surely it should be all mitzvot. Every mitzvah is important. Surely parents should be careful to make sure they're teaching their children across the board. Why single out this mitzvah? Firstly, in order to answer the question, we have to understand the difference between amira, emor, which is the understanding of the word to say, and vaydaber, dibur, which is to speak. What's the difference between saying and speaking? Saying is to convey a message, but speaking is to obligate or impose a person. It's the difference about saying to someone or speaking to someone in a way in which kind of orders them and tells them what to do, imposing them with the fact, or saying, which is conveying this important message, but it's not for you, it's for us. So the first thing we can understand from this Rashi is the word emor or amar is repeated to highlight the fact, Kohanim parents, when you're teaching your children these specific laws that are only for the Kohanim, ensure that you embody them as a family. That you're not just telling them, hey, kids, you do this. No, this is something that we do. And this helps us to understand, B'gadol in general, what's going on in this pasuk, in this verse. And I reflect back to when I was a child. And this is no reflection of my parents or anything like that. But I remember so clearly growing up, parents telling kids, one rule for you, one rule for me. And that's whether it was the time we could go to bed or how many fizzy drinks we were allowed, whatever it might be. Why can't I do that? Because you're a child and I'm an adult. And I remember as a child vowing, I will never do that as a parent. And I cannot tell you probably how many times I have had to say this to my own kids. Daddy, why can't I? Because you're a child. Why can't I? Because you're not old enough. When you're older, you can make your own decisions. One rule for you, one rule for me. And now we have to broaden that out to understand it with the Kohanim. When it comes to the priest, a little Cohen child will go to school, and very quickly he would realize not everyone around him is acting the same way. Because you're a Cohen, you're a bit different. We set you aside, like I said already, we set you aside from the rest of the community in certain levels of purity and impurity, in certain areas of Kedusha and holiness. You have a special job to do, Mr. Cohen child. And therefore, you might see things going on with other children around you, and you're going to be different. We've set you aside. But in that environment, you've got to stay strong, and you've got to still act in what's appropriate way for you. So this is a special message, says Rashi, for the parents of Kohanim. Realize that your children are a little bit different. Realize that you as a family have to hold yourself as different standards, and therefore be careful in how we teach our children. Be careful in what you impose upon them, and realize this is something that we are doing together as a family. Make the home an environment, a place in which they can learn appropriately, and realize it's not about you, but it's about us. And I notice that with my kids all the time, that I often have to say, one will come around and tell me, Daddy, did you see that she said this, or she didn't do that, or she didn't brush her teeth, or she didn't clear her bowl away? And I so often find myself saying to them, we both do, Lisa and I, we say to them, you worry about you. Listen, if something's dangerous or something serious, then you must tell me. But don't always run to tell us what your sisters are not doing. You just worry about what you're doing. Too often we look over our shoulders about what someone's going on over there. This one did that, this one. No, we have to make sure that we can live a life looking inwards. Let's worry, at least when it comes to growth. Let's worry about us. Let's make sure that we're doing what we should be doing, not looking over our shoulder too much about what everyone else is doing. Focus on the goodness that we can bring out and the impact that we can make in this wonderful world. Be'ezrat Hashem, I hope to see you all very, very, very soon. Keep well, keep safe, and have a great Shabbos.